Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners. It's December 21st. All commissioners are present. I would like to make an announcement that there'll be no meeting Tuesday of next week, the 27th, but we'll be holding a regular meeting on Wednesday, the 28th. We're looking for comments not on this agenda. Hearing none. Looking for approval of agenda.
So move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Looking for approval of minutes from December 14th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
You can't.
Oh, I wasn't here. Yeah.
I'll move to approve.
You
can
can
second
second though.
I will second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Sorry.
And approval
Job.
of consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Next up is our public hearing wrap up of child care assistance grant funded by Business Oregon. Mr. Brent DeMo.
You can come up.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Just say you're required to hold a public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brent DeMo, Director of Family and Community Outreach Department. The purpose of this public hearing is just to see if there's any public comment. It's just required by the funder to see if anybody came to say anything about the program, which is now over.
Could
Okay.
you, for the record, give us some background on why we're having this process and what the project was about, just so
You bet.
people are informed about why we're doing this?
Yep, we received some funding through Business Oregon, which was federal CBDG funding to provide assistance for helping folks in Polk County, in rural Polk County, who are struggling to pay childcare. We were required to have a public hearing at the beginning of that process and now a public hearing at the end of the process. Is that enough information?
Results.
Yeah, well, I do the results. So the federal government set the guidelines so restrictive that very few people were able to take advantage of this process. The state already has a child care assistance program, employment-related daycare, and any family that qualified for that program qualified for the program we had too. And the state program didn't have any co-pays or anything like that at all. The program through the federal government was more restrictive and would cost the families more. So we only ended up helping two families that fell in this little gap of they didn't qualify for that, but they were still low income enough to qualify for this one. And we were talking about like hundreds of dollars a month was the gap, and trying to find people who just fell into that range. Most people already had child care assistance through the state. So with that particular grant, we returned the majority of the dollars. But for the two families that we helped, they were super grateful to have childcare paid for 6 months.
Those restrictions are all income related?
All income related, all set by the federal government, all where your zip code is, a bunch of things that we didn't have any control over.
It's a common theme throughout HUD programs and others.
Exactly.
The way they measure income is not commensurate with reality. People's income isn't necessarily fixed through a 2-year period.
Exactly. Not to mention if you started to work more hours or got a salary increase and all of those things, all of those changes can be detrimental to the kind of assistance that you get. But since I'm saying something about the one that didn't work, I just want to say the one that did work, the food program we did, they have ended up almost doubling our contract close to $500,000 because the need for food in rural Polk County is great, and we've extended that one through May. I just wanted to say something positive since the other one did not go the way we wanted it to go.
Well done.
Thank you.
You.
Brent, you and your team are amazing. So keep up the good work and thank you so much for your effort.
If there's money out there, we'll go try to find it. We'll try to get it in the hands of the people.
Well, great job. Thank you. Next up is public hearing.
You actually have to open the public hearing to see if there's anyone.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody like to comment on the wrap up of the child care assistance program? Hearing none?
And then we have an action that we have to take.
Do we?
No, you just have to hold the public hearing.
Acknowledge
It'll be in the minutes, and we had to do the advertisements, and then Brent will get all that stuff and wrap it up in the grant.
Good. Okay, so that brings us to public hearing. Vacating a portion of Morris Road. Mr. Eric Berry.
Good morning. Eric Berry, Polk County Surveyor. Here to talk about a potential vacation of Morris Road. We have the pictures and sketches in your packet, so I wasn't going to cover those too much. I kind of wanted to give you a quick summary of the background of the road. So first off, the vacation is initiated by a landowner request, which obviously we followed up on, and that's why we're here. So the road itself was created in 1889. It also was created by a landowner petition and ultimately resulted in a board order to open the road. It is a 40-foot wide right-of-way. At this time, the right-of-way itself is all but undeveloped. We have photographic evidence from 1935 and 1956 aerial photos that show that it was developed to what appears to be a fairly travelable condition. But by the 1986 aerial photos, it's all but grown over and it appears that a trail or the remnants of the previous road still existed, which is pretty much the current state of that road today. There is a trail through portions of it. And we did provide notice of the today's public hearing by service, by publication in the Itemizer Observer, and we posted those notices on site also. And that's kind of my wrap up of my quick summary here, unless you had any other questions for me.
Do you have an idea the last time this road was utilized? This right away?
There is currently a trail through that, and speaking with some of the landowners, they do use that on occasion. The person who requested it is in the process of a development, and I think that's what started the vacation request.
When was the last time that we maintained it?
It was before we started keeping records on maintenance. So if we have ever maintained it, we don't have record of it. Like I said, in the 1986 aerial photographs, it appears pretty much as it does today, where it's just a trail and not usable by the general public.
So I can assume that your assessment is there's no public benefit to keeping it.
Correct. Sorry,
in the road
I
list.
forgot to read my next bullet point. Yeah, so we are, Public Works is recommending that you do vacate the road, the right of way.
Any questions for Eric?
Yeah. I reserve the right to call him back.
Yes, we'll stay there.
I will stay.
We will be taking public comment on this. Every participant will have a 3-minute time period. We're going to start with those that are for the vacation of the property. And that's kind of the reason we're here. So those who would like to come, if you'd like to come up one at a time, state your name and address. And floor is yours.
Thank you for meeting with me. My name is David Harris and my farm is at 3950 Morris Road. When I was growing up outside of Salem, one of our favorite shows was Dallas and Falcon Crest. And I never realized the maneuvering and tactics people take when they own land and have a dispute until I bought this little farm at the end of Morris Road. I've never had a problem with my neighbors when they would come to me and say, hey, we want to put up a fence or build a fence or replace a fence. I said, great, how much can I share in that cost? when they would come to me and say, we need to take down a tree, I would say, yeah, I'll share that cost with you. So I've never had an experience like I've had here in Dallas with a neighbor. So I approached Jane, my neighbor, about doing a survey because the records are pretty old. And I said, hey, do you want to do a survey just to kind of get the boundaries set up between our land? And she said, no, she didn't need one. So I went ahead and did a survey with Parker out of Salem. And after that was complete, I met with Jane to go over the survey and discuss putting up a deer fence because I want to protect my crops. So when I knew there was a county road, an old county road there. So I basically put some markers where I thought the fence would go that were about 15 to 20 feet from the property line. And you can see the map where the property line and how the road spans both sides of that property line. And she said, no, I couldn't put up a fence there because when the road was undrivable because of rainwater or a tree fell down in the way, she would just drive somewhere else on my land to get to her land. So I was really perplexed on what to do. And I thought the path of least resistance was just to petition to abate the road because I have an unreasonable neighbor. And after receiving threats and the mandatory action to remove the markers that I put down for my fence, I worked with Eric Verity to petition to close the road.
30 seconds.
And in closing, I wouldn't have done this if she would just, give me such a hard time on putting up a deer fence. That's all I want to do. I would like to put it on my property line. And there's an old saying, good fences make good neighbors. And I think that's the case here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does someone else like to testify for the abandonment of the road? Yeah, come up, sir. You state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jeff Havlin, and I live in Dallas here. It's 1250 Southeast Godsey Road. But I own a farm on Peridale Road, and the road in question is on the south line of our property. And I would like to see it vacated as well. And one of the arguments from our neighbor was that it would make this piece of land, she couldn't get in there. And I just want to say that about 6 or 7 years ago, she came on the property and she said, hey, I got a question for you. I want you to hop in my truck and I'll show you something. So we get in her truck and she was taking me, my line between mine and hers. We have a fence there. There's 3 or 4 acres right there. And it was in grass seed at the time. And she wanted my opinion on whether it would make a good vineyard block, because that's what we have is grapes. And so I got in her truck. We drove out over there. It's, it's a 5-mile drive to go. I can see from my yard, but I have to go around. And she didn't drive on the old road. She drove on the south edge of Mr. Harris's property, the north edge of hers, up going east into past the tree line and then cut across. She had a path through the trees, not driving on anything that Mr. Harris purchased. So she has a way to get to this little piece of property. I don't know how to really do a good job describing that, but ours is here, and this is the property in question. And we drove around here and came up and drove along here, and then there's a path through these woods. Drove her truck through there. And I can tell you that this this road on my south line is impassable. There are 50-year-old trees growing right up in the middle of it. He said there was a trail, maybe I've walked through there.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So anyway, there is a way to get to that piece of property without using this road. And I want the road gone because if it ever gets opened up, that just puts our property in jeopardy. And we've already had the people across the street burgled this fall where they stole marijuana plants. You know, he's a legal grower, tore his fences down. And I would just appreciate not having that so available. So big. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here like to testify for the abandonment of the road? Hearing none. I'll open the floor for those that would like to be against the closure of the road. Come on. Please state your name and address for the records, please.
My name is Penny Cox. I live at 11140 Orr's Corner Road, McRail, Oregon, 97371. I have to say, it's been a long time before I came before the county commissioners. So that's what happens when I, finally semi-retire after 20 years there. I am poking my nose again into Farm Bureau and ag and related issues. So today I'm here representing the Farm Bureau because personally I don't have standing. Our farm is in McRail. But we feel that the Polk County Farm Bureau does have standing, and I sent by electronic mail my reasons this morning. And because I'm limited with time and want to get to a particular issue, I'm not going to spend time showing how we have standing and how, that we think this is a land use issue, and that would it would pass the significant impacts test at LUBA. And because of the rules and procedures of that, we would like to ask the record to be left open for 7 days so that we can add additional testimony and respond to anything that was brought up here today. So putting aside neighbors' issues and disputes and whether or not a tractor can get across this road or not, the issue really comes down to the ORS statutes of 368.331 and that of consent. There are many other issues, the right to farm and et cetera, but I want to spend my limited time going over an issue of law rather than an issue of disputes over neighbors. It says in that a county governing body shall not, and notice it says shall not may not, shall not vacate, shall not vacate public lands under ORS 368 if the vacation would deprive an owner of a recorded property right of access necessary for the exercise of that property right. So what are the property rights here of Ms. Phillips or even the neighbors or anyone else in Perrydale, for that example? What are the rights of this access road that can be given to Ms. Phillips? Well, she needs to have access to all of her property. The roadmaster said that this would not deprive any of the people that vacating. It would not deprive them of a public county road. However, this is not just saying that she has the right to drive her car into her garage or into her barn. How many?
30.
She has the right to be able to have access to her property to develop it in any way she wants. If she wanted to put a vineyard there and she wanted agritourism, if she wanted to develop it in any future, the road is there. It's available for it to be developed. You take that away, and then it's impossible for their neighbors to all get together and say, hey, we need to have a county road again because we've got needs for fire and emergencies and getting all of our equipment and et cetera in there for any future development of farms. So I set out in here 7 pages or so of all the reasons why we feel that technically, legally, putting personal issues aside, that the legal issues that are involved here shall not means that there's been a whole body of legislation through the years that has been bound on court law showing that there must be a reason why this word shall not vacate if it's not with owner's consent for property rights, not just to be able to drive on it currently, but have access to that in perpetuity of this right of way. So we hope that you will not vacate Morse Road. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else willing or want to testify? Please want to. Again, your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dave Hebenthal. I live at 4355 Paradale Road. Her place is about a mile on it. My place is the crow flies. I'm currently the president of Polk County Farm Bureau, so I'm also here on behalf of Farm Bureau. Yeah, for what she states in her paper that she put in, you know, the property rights, that kind of stuff. So my thing is that you know, you should have a right to farm. And so if the worst case scenario, if you know, if they want to vacate this road, is that she should still be able to have deeded right of way to her property is what the least that should happen here. You know, she currently has it, you know, on that road, and it should be part of, you know, come to be part of her deed to be able to have access. So, thank you.
Anyone else today wish to testify? Hearing none. For discussion. We need to have Mr. Berry come back up front.
I don't think I have any more questions for him at this moment. I will have questions. I will not be ready to make the decision on this.
I'm the same way. I want to do some more.
Yeah, well, now there's been a legal challenge made, and so now I want to have counsel present. So, or at least I want to individually engage with counsel over questions.
Same vote.
So we'll postpone this decision for after the first year. What's protocol? Next Wednesday would work.
Morgan can chime in, but you have a request from the floor to keep the record open for 7 days. You have to make a decision if you want to honor that 7 days or longer. And then once you have that record closed, then you can put it on the agenda at any time. It gives staff time to answer questions in the record and those kind of things.
Yeah, so I will move to have the record held open for 7 days, close the record at that time, and have a decision within 2 weeks after that.
Second that motion.
All right. So we've had a motion to keep the record for 7 days. And then we'll come back to visit, and then we'll have a decision within 14 days of that date. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 So just for clarification, the record will close on December 28th at 5 p.m.
Yes,
Thank you.
any further comment? All right.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, everybody. Is there a need for an executive session today?
I think you have one more vacation.
Oh, one more vacation?
Yep.
Oh,
That's for the child, you have that one, then you have a public. You skipped this one next, so you took it out. So you have
Take care of Ballston.
so I did take one out of order. We have another vacation, so I apologize for that. For several portions of the undeveloped right of the way, the unincorporated community of Ballston. Mr. Eric Berry. Thank you. Sorry to throw a curve at you. Went right by that.
More prepared for the first one or this one than the last one. Good morning again. This is again a vacation request by a landowner in Ballston to vacate a couple sections of currently undeveloped right-of-ways in the community of Ballston. These right-of-ways were created in 1892 by the plat of Sailings Edition to the town of Ballston. They were platted as 60-foot wide right-of-ways. They are undeveloped currently, and with the photographic evidence, aerial photographs, I did see that they were at least somewhat developed as recently as the 60s. Since then, they have been farmed over, treated like they had not existed. As far as the access goes, like it states in the road officials report, the vacation here will not harm anybody's legal right to access to other county roads or their right or their access to a county road, excuse me. No properties will be landlocked. Again, we have provided notifications of this vacation petition by service, publication, and posting.
And your recommendation?
I'm sorry, that's contained in the road officials reports. I forget that one. We are recommending vacation in this case.
It looks like Daryl, this was in the 60s when this was kind of abandoned as far.
There was some limited use in our 1956 photos, but it was kind of the same way. While it may have been used at an earlier date, once the late 50s rolled around, its use had been diminishing and is all but gone at this point. Unfortunately, our photos aren't a yearly or even a decade by decade, so I only have certain looks into history.
Any questions?
So what's the process? I only see this L-shaped piece. So
The L-shaped piece of property or the L-shaped right of way?
I guess the right of way we're talking about
Okay.
vacating here is just one L-shaped piece. Is that right?
Yeah, and these are portions of two separate right of ways that were platted by that late 1800s subdivision plat. There were the north-south portion of that L-shaped piece did go through to what is now Ballston Road and has been previously vacated by the board. So this is kind of a remnant.
So that was one of my questions. Like if I'm looking at the plat map, book 1, page 46, this is the last of those platted right of ways.
There still are others. Community Club Road, it was also what is now Community Club Road, was also platted by that same subdivision plat. It is currently a county road, county maintained road. And it obviously remains. And there are still other sections of those right of ways created by that plat that will remain.
And we have to take each one of those by adjacent property owner request?
That is typically how we've done it, yes. We have not been very active in looking for right of ways to vacate. It is somewhat time consuming and therefore costly process. And without a citizen request, we simply don't look at vacating them until requested.
So I anticipate what I believe is a private landowner's gain by doing this.
Yes.
What's the public benefit of doing this?
The benefit to the public at large would be primarily the tax revenues that the county gets. But basically, there's just no harm to the rest of the public.
And forgive me, but I don't know what the process is. Once we've made a decision to vacate a portion of platted roads, what's the process then for the adjacent property owners to acquire their fair share?
It is there is no process to go through. The process, as far as we're concerned, is I'll provide you with a board order to be signed and recorded. At that point, what a right-of-way is very similar to an easement between two private parties. The underlying fee title of those adjacent owners does typically go to the center line of the road. There are certain cases where roads are not created, splitting property lines. In the case of a plat, it is almost always the case that the underlying fee title does go to the center line of the road. So it's my best analogy is it's kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off when the right-of-way is vacated. Your skin is still underneath. It's always been there. You're just removing the Band-Aid and that's kind of it. So those rights do exist, and we're just removing the public's right to use a portion of that otherwise private property.
I assume all adjoining properties have been notified.
Yes, we notified everybody by service individually, by certified mail. Not all of them were picked up at the post office, so we made every attempt to contact them individually, but not everybody went and got their notice. But we also posted it on site on stakes with laminated sheets, so they should have been able to see it on site, and then it was in the paper also.
So once it's abated, does that stay as an easement on record?
No,
Just
no,
automatically
the public right of way
It's all goes.
goes away with this order, correct?
It's just that's sure all around it.
Mhm.
I
Any
don't
further
have any other
questions?
questions at the moment.
I don't know.
Thank you, Rick. So again, I'd like to open this for public comment. Is there anybody here that would wish to comment on this road closure? Hearing none. What would be the correct avenue on this one? So Morgan?
If there's no one there to testify, I would suggest we close the hearing. The board order that Mr. Berry has provided is in draft format. If there's no objections and there's no other considerations from the board, we could be placed on the consent calendar for next week.
Your two feelings on this?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with closing the hearing. So we should close the hearing. And I would actually like to put this on the same time frame. Don't need the record open. Can close the record as far as I'm concerned, but I'd like to put it on the same consent calendar with the previous vacation. I will have some additional questions for legal counsel.
You go to that also?
I agree. I wouldn't oppose keeping the record open in case some folks who haven't picked up their certified mail may want to
I have no opposition to that either.
submit testimony just in case. And given the timing of the year that this is being proposed, I wouldn't mind just keeping it open with
I
the same
agree.
schedule.
I agree with that. So we'll move the vacationing of the property in Boston, follow the same thing as we'll keep public road for 7 days. Closing it next week for further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So now, as I see, and I'm referring back to the agenda, I don't see anything that I've missed today, other than wishing all of you a very Merry Christmas. Do we have a need for an executive session?
Yes, sir. The board will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations, and sub E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions.